It's starting pitching that the Phillies might need. A report yesterday suggesting from John Morosi the Phillies are looking at rotation upgrades. Garrett Crochet and Jack Flaherty are among the options that the Phillies have discussed. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, is starting pitching, Michael, at the top of your wish list if you're Dave Dombrowski. Are you surprised to hear that?
Yeah, I am surprised. I mean, I believe in the theory that you can never have too much starting pitching, however, but starting pitching would not be at the top of my wish list for the Philadelphia Phillies. And it gets me thinking that maybe they're a little bit more worried about Ranger Suarez than they're letting on if they are thinking about going to get a starting pitcher in the next 3 or 4 days.
Right. I was going to say, Garrett Crochet's a guy that if you get him, right, you would imagine he's a guy that would pitch a playoff game for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And realistically, you only need 4 starters in the playoffs, if that. So that would mean that, either Ranger or Christopher Sanchez, who was an all-star this season, both all-stars, would not be pitching, making a start in the postseason. So, yeah, I would find it interesting if the Phillies did go and get a starting pitcher. Like I said, I'm in the camp. You can never have too many starters. But if they do go get one, it raises some questions. And question number one would be, to me, maybe they're a little bit more concerned about Ranger Suarez than they're letting on right now.
Right, because, you imagine that Wheeler and Nola are going to pitch a playoff game no matter what. But the whole, Suarez, he has performed well in the playoffs. It's not like it's not like this guy's having a great regular season and then you don't know about playoff performance. His playoff performance has been there. It's been the regular season where you haven't really had the performance. Now you're getting the regular season performance. It's starting to slow down a bit, but you wouldn't have questions about Suarez in the playoffs, would you?
No, not at all. The only thing I could think of is, he is versatile, and in 2022 they did use him in that role. He started games in the playoffs. He closed out Game 5 of the National League Championship Series against the San Diego Padres. So not only does he have playoff experience, he has it in a variety of roles, right? But still, I would think they'd be pretty sound with Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, and Sanchez going into the playoffs. Like I said, if they get another starter, hey, it just, who's the odd man out would be the first question being asked.
Right. Well, and then the other question, I guess, is if you added another starting pitcher, does that also speak that they don't trust Christopher Sanchez in a playoff game?
Possibly, but he has pitched well this season, and it's a chicken with an egg thing. You can't trust him because he hasn't had past results. You can't have past results unless you trust him, right? So, again, I think starting pitching is one of their strengths. To me, I would not be looking for a starting pitcher if I was them. I think they desperately, and with every day as we march towards the trade deadline here, including today, I think they desperately need an outfield bat, and I think they need some bullpen help before they even think about starting pitching.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. Phil's in action today. It's 1-1. A home run from Trey Turner has just tied it up. You talk about the lineup here. They've been struggling offensively, that we know, but they go through the ups and downs of a season. But what do you make, Mike, of all the platoons that we seem to be seeing? Marsh, and now it looks like almost Stott.
Yeah, it's basically performance-based. I can't argue with Marsh not hitting against left-handed hitters. I think he's 7 for 50 or something like that about him. And when I just said a second ago, go get an outfield bat, I'm starting to get concerned about Marsh against right-handers. He just, that elbow injury, not hitting with the same power that he did early in the season. He hasn't really gotten on track. Pache hasn't really gotten on track. I don't think anybody wants to really trust Weston Wilson in a playoff series. And to me, I think Bryson Stott has been the biggest disappointment of the Philadelphia Phillies season. He's kind of been able to fly under the radar a little bit as we've sort of focused on the struggles of other players like Castellanos and everything else. But Bryson Stott has taken a major step backwards the first part of this season. And to me, he's been the number one disappointment. And it's hard pressed to say put him out there against lefties. He's having a problem hitting righties right now.
Where do you rank Alvarado in terms of concern?
Concerned. Again, don't trust him right now. Now, again, bullpen guys are always, one outing away from getting on a hot streak, right? So it can easily turn right now. But I don't feel great about him coming in the 8th or ninth inning to close out a game right now. And I do think that if they were to get a bullpen arm, they would be a better bullpen if they were able to slot Alvarado down, put him in the 6th and 7th inning where he could take down a pocket of lefties. Even though he struggled this season out of the pen, he has been very, very, very good against left-handers. I don't trust him in the 8th or ninth inning where he'd have to come in and get lefties and righties out. But, boy, if you could get a bullpen guy with closing experience and slot that guy towards the back end and push Alvarado up to the 6th or 7th where he could come in and take down some tough lefties, I think that might be the role for him going forward.
Yeah, we're talking with Mike McGarry. Phil's in action. Did not play well against Oakland before the break. Did not play well in Pittsburgh after the break. Then lost the game against Minnesota. You thought last night was a big one for them.
Yeah, I think they've got to start getting back on track and winning series here. I think this is an interesting game today. If they lose today, they've dropped 3 straight series, right? A's, Pirates, and Twins, and you got the Guardians and the Yankees coming to town. Now, nobody's pushing the panic button here. This team is going to make the playoffs. They're still 9.5 up, in part because I just don't think the Atlanta Braves are capable of making a run this year during the regular season. I think they're just simply too beat up, too many injuries. But we would all like to see the Phillies sort of peaking as they go into October and playing better in August and September and going into the playoffs on the upswing. What we don't want to see is look back and say, hey, the Phillies really played their best ball in April and May, and I think they've got to start winning some of these games and winning some of these series. Again, I'm not concerned pushing any panic buttons, but my eyebrow would be raised if they would lose today to the Twins and would have dropped 3 series in a row, and you have the Guardians, who are kind of underrated, and you got a possible World Series preview this weekend coming to town this weekend. So, again, not concerned, but just maybe saying, if they drop today's game a little bit.
All right, we talked about some concerns. Alvarado was in there. Mason Miller, we saw him with Oakland, would be a shutdown guy at the back end of the rotation. That we know. But if you have to give away a top-level guy, you have him listed on your list today over at PressOfAtlanticCity.com. 10 players the Phillies should consider. Would you give away a Painter to get a Miller?
Yeah, absolutely. With the club control you have for Painter, with Miller rather, absolutely. And I think you're in a position to win the World Series. You've got to do everything you can to win the World Series this year. And I think Mason Miller fits great in the back end of that bullpen. I know he had the elbow problems last year. I know he had the, UCL issues. There are some people out there that say Tommy John, he throws 104. It's only a matter of time. He's 25, 26 years old. But hey, if I can go get him and solidify the back of the bullpen, I think he's exactly what you need. And Mike, the other thing, you look at the other sort of closers that are out there, do we really feel great about Kyle Finnegan coming into a game in the 8th or ninth inning of a National League Division Series or a championship series? Do we really feel good about a lot of the other relievers that are out there? I think Mason Miller is head and shoulders above everybody else who's available out there. I think he might be the best player available out there for a trade. If you have to give up prospects, go get him and go win the World Series this year.
Do you feel the same way about anybody else on that list, that you would be willing to give up a Painter, an Aiden Miller, a Crawford to get any of the 10 guys you listed?
Not really. Not really. I don't think the other guys are great fits, and I think the other guys, you can, if you don't go get a Brent Rooker, maybe you can get a Joe Adele, maybe you can get a Miguel Andujar, maybe you get a Mark Canhana. maybe you can get those guys without giving up the prospects. I don't think the separation is the same between the other players, where I think Mason Miller is head and shoulders above the other relievers based on that list. And plus, you look at the club control that you have over him. It's not like you're just getting him for this year. You're also going to have him the next couple of years. So I think he fits in great here. And I think the gap in his talent between him and the next reliever is worth giving up prospects for.
The one thing, too, is you got the center field thing. Are you keeping Rojas in center, or is that something that you're still, trying to figure out between now and Tuesday?
Yeah, if I can go get a corner outfielder, I'm going to keep Rojas in center and platoon him with Marsh. And then I'm going to, in the 6th or 7th inning, if the Phillies are up, then I'm going to switch Marsh over to left field and put Rojas in there defensively. I think the Phillies' best roster and the Phillies' best playoff roster is with Rojas on the team and playing center field in key defensive innings, right? I think he's capable of making catches that other guys on the team aren't capable of. And I think one of those catches or two of those catches could win you a World Series. So he's got the capability of winning games with his glove. That's why I like him on the roster. Again, ideal situation for me. Go get that right-handed bat, put him in left field, platoon in center field with Marsh and Rojas, and then if the Phillies are up in the 7th or 8th inning, swish Marsh over to left, put Rojas in for defense if he's not already in the game. I think that's the Phillies' strongest roster. I just see Rojas can make defensive plays that can win you a playoff game.
A playoff game right now in the 9th inning, you feel all right with Jeff Hoffman on the mound?
I do feel all right with Jeff Hoffman in the game. I think he has pitched well this season. I like another guy back there, another guy with closing experience. We just talked about Mason Miller, so I obviously would feel even better. Hoffman in the 8th, Miller in the 9th. Then I think you got maybe a little Ryan Matson, Brad Litch thing going, right? But right now, I feel better with Hoffman in there than any other reliever available on the market right now, or at least the guys whose names are rumored to be available.
All right, Mike, while we got you, we'll shift a couple quick gears over to the football. The Giants have been on Hard Knocks. Don't know how much of that you've seen, but
I've seen it all.
You've seen it all. So if you've seen it all, does this feel like a 4, 5, 6-win team?
I'm perplexed, Mike, and I wanted to bring this up to you, basically. I look at people predictions for the Giants, and I think I saw the other day 4-13. I think it was USA Today or something like that predicted 4-13. This is a team that has won 6 games last year without the quarterback. The quarterback is back. He's supposedly healthy. They've added Brian Burns. They bolstered the offensive line. Now they've drafted a top receiver from LSU. They let Saquon Barkley walk away. I'm a little surprised at the negativity. I'm not saying the Giants are going to win 10, 11, 12 games, but I think with a healthy quarterback and the additions to the roster, they'd be more in the 8, 9 range. I'm surprised that they're at the 4 range. And maybe you could explain to me why people just feel so negatively about them.
I think there's 2 reasons, Mike. I think the show has really put them in a light that makes them look like they're not on the same page. Believe me, I think Shane has made the right decision in letting Barkley walk, but it's the way it's being perceived is that they fumbled the whole thing because Mara is like, it'll look terrible. I can't sleep if we let him go. But I think Joe Shane is doing the right thing. He doesn't want to pay Barkley, so he doesn't want to look like he just flat out doesn't want the guy. So he's trying to tiptoe around the fact that he didn't want to pay him, which is the right decision. The problem, I guess, is Daniel Jones good enough to be the guy that you lean on? Because Joe Shane is saying, look, when I'm in Buffalo, I didn't have a running back there. We had, Singletary, who we have here. So I think he made the right decision there. I think the way it's being presented has made them look kind of bad. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the show is being edited for television to make it a good television show, basically. And I really found it fascinating, better than maybe any of the Hard Knocks, because I think it really gives you insight as to what they were thinking, making personnel moves and stuff. It's really been fascinating. When it comes to Saquon Barkley, I think the Giants sometimes get a bad rap from people. I'm old enough to remember when people, especially people in the Philadelphia market and Philadelphia media, were basically making fun of the Giants because they picked Saquon Barkley second in the draft, and they were saying nobody drafts running back second today in today's NFL world. What a waste of a draft pick. And when the Giants turn and don't elect to give a 27-year-old running back with an injury history the best free agent contract out there, when their other running backs, let's face it, the running back free agent market was really, full this year. They're criticized for that too. So yeah, I just find it interesting. Do I expect the Giants to be a 10, 11 win team? No, but people talking like they're only going to win 3-4 games. They won 6 last year with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. I mean, Daniel Jones is better than Tommy DeVito.
Well,
there's got to be a win or two more in there.
Listen, and they added Burns to the defensive side of the ball. Right. Their defense was getting better. Now they get another guy. It's just going to be interesting to see what they can do. And I think the prognostication is most people don't like Jones, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. You lost your best offensive player. You're now anointing Jones as the guy, and most people don't believe in him.
Yeah, we're going to find out about Daniel Jones this year. I go back to the fact that 2 years ago, they did win 10, 11 games. He did go on the road and win a playoff game. Now, albeit it was in Minnesota, but go around the league and check off the box for quarterbacks who have won playoff games on the road. There's not a lot of them, including the guy in Philadelphia down at the Lynx. He hasn't won a playoff game on the road yet. So it is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So, yeah, we're going to find out about Daniel Jones. This is his season. Obviously, the Giants have made the decision. We're going to find out about Daniel Jones. After this year, the contract lightens up a little bit. They can cut him at the end of this year and decide what they want to do. Yeah, it's interesting. I think, Mike, I think it's not a great look for the franchise, and it makes for great TV when they have the head coach. They ask the head coach, hey, do you want to trade up for Jaden Daniels? And he says, hell yeah. He was jumping out of his seat, basically. And I think people are taking that as an indictment of Daniel Jones. They don't believe in Daniel Jones, stuff like that. So I agree with you. I think the show has kind of hurt the Giants and in the public's mind made the Giants look like a hot mess or a train wreck when these are discussions that every NFL team is having. The Giants are just on HBO doing it, basically.
They tried to downplay it today a little bit. Joe Shane saying, hey, we didn't know if Daniel Jones was even going to be back and ready to play. We got to be prepared for that. So we'll see how that all plays out. Eagles, Giants, they're all back at camp. We'll continue to look at those. By the way, Sixers Reggie Jackson yesterday. Kyle Lowry's back here. They've got Eric Gordon. A lot of guards here. They keep on adding. So the moves that Sixers have made doing anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a better basketball team than it was last year, and this was one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference with, Tobias Harris. And basically, Paul George has replaced Tobias Harris. So I think the Sixers have made a move forward. The thing I think is a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference have also made a move forward in this offseason. I think the overall conference is better. So are the Sixers definitely at the top of the conference? Absolutely. I will say one thing about this summer. I'd feel a little bit better about the 76ers if Joel Embiid would just stop talking. Stop talking to podcasts. Stop talking to the New York Times. I'd feel a little bit better if Joel Embiid just got in the gym, slipped in a few salads once in a while, and did a little better from that angle, and stopped giving us his opinion on every subject that comes down the pike. That's all I'll say about the Sixers.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, PressOfAC.com here on the Sports Badge at AC Press McGarry on the X platform. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Mike. We'll see you down the road. Thanks.